Hello, good morning and good evening to you over in Canada and around the world. It's Kim Bright here. Catherine Bright with a very deep voice. So, hello everybody. Catherine's sense of love. She's handed the microphone over to me for today because you've got some quite interesting stuff here. We alluded to last week about the Schumann resonance, and I'd like to go into that one a little bit more because there's a lot of big stuff happening around the planet, and I do think the Schumann resonance and vibrations and frequencies and magnetics and biomagnetics and all these other buzzwords we hear, I think those are all come to a head, and it's time for us all to maybe dip into our own expertise and masterships. The reason why we're here, because this is quite a crucial time in the planet's existence and our own continued presence on the planet. It could be as big as all of that. So without further ado, and I know we spoke last week about quite a few things, and we mentioned the Schumann resonance because this is something that's I think very closely linked with our own being on the planet, our own interactions with nature, with sentient beings. Now, I don't know really where to start because this is something that's been evolving in my own head constantly, and this is trying to put things together. It's as I say, evolving even as we speak. So bear with me if I feel or sound a little bit disjointed today, because there's an awful lot of stuff happening, and trying to get on top of it or get a handle on it all, it's almost like it's hit critical mass. So I'd like to talk first of all about brainwaves. Why we think what we think. There's a lovely article I managed to download from Brainworks neurotherapy.com, which is fairly simplified technology or wording about brainwaves and frequencies. So their article, it's about what are brainwaves. So at the root of all our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors is a communication between neurons within our brains. Brainwaves are produced by synchronized electrical pulses from masses of neurons communicating with each other. Brainwaves are detected using sensors placed upon the scalp. They are divided into bandwidths to describe their functions, but are best thought of as a continuous spectrum of consciousness, from slow, loud, and functional to fast, subtle, and complex. It is a handy analogy to think of brainwaves as musical notes. The low frequencies are like a deep penetrating drum beat, while the higher frequency brainwaves are more like a subtle high-pitched flute. Like a symphony, the higher and lower frequencies link and cohere with each other through harmonics. This is an interesting perception, because I find very similar analogies when I do healings. For example, I find that healings at a very low frequency tend to be more broadcast, more widespread. They seem to have a very deep bass tone. If there were a color associated with it, it would be violets or the dark purples, for example. The higher frequencies, the yellows, seem to be more specific, more laser-like in their precision, much shallower acting, but they much more treble in tone. Yellows, bright oranges, for example, and they all carry a particular resonance with it, and we'll talk about resonances in just a minute. So our brainwaves change according to what we're doing and feeling. When slower brainwaves are dominant, we can feel tired, slow, sluggish, or dreamy. The higher frequencies are dominant when we feel wired or hyper alert. The descriptions that follow are only broad descriptions. In practice, things are far more complex. Aren't we all? Brainwaves reflect different aspects when they occur in different locations in the brain. Brainwave speed is measured in hertz, in other words, cycles per second, and they are divided into bands delineating slow, moderate, and fast waves. So infra-low frequencies are below 0.5 of a hertz, so they're very, very slow and low frequencies. They're known as slow cortical potentials. Are thought to be basic cortical rhythms that underlie our higher brain functions. Very little is known about infra-low brainwaves. Their slow nature makes them difficult to detect and accurately measure, so few studies have been done. They appear to take a major role in brain timing and network function. Delta brainwaves are from about 0.5 to 3 hertz. They are slow, loud brainwaves, low frequency and deeply penetrating like a drum beat. They are generated in deepest meditation and dreamless sleep. Delta waves suspend external awareness and are the source of empathy. Healing and regeneration are stimulated in this state, and that is why deep restorative sleep is so essential to the healing process. You get theta waves, which are 3 to 8 hertz, and this is a commonly used brain frequency in doing healings. So theta brainwaves occur most often in sleep, but are also dominant in deep meditation. Theta is our gateway to learning, memory, and intuition. In theta, our senses are withdrawn from the external world and focused on signals originating from within. It is that twilight state which we normally only experience fleetingly as we wake or drift off to sleep. In theta, we are in a dream. Vivid imagery, intuition, and information beyond our normal conscious awareness. It's where we hold our stuff, our fears, troubled history, and nightmares. Alpha waves are from 8 to 12 hertz. Alpha brainwaves are dominant during quietly flowing thoughts and in some meditative states. Alpha is the power of now, being here in the present. Alpha is a resting state for the brain. Alpha waves aid overall mental coordination, calmness, alertness, mind-body integration, and learning. You get beta waves, which are 12 to 38 hertz. These are quite generalized frequencies, by the way. So beta brainwaves dominate our normal waking state of consciousness when attention is directed towards cognitive tasks and the outside world. Beta is a fast activity, present when we are alert, attentive, engaged in problem-solving, judgment, decision-making, or focused mental activity. Beta brainwaves are further divided into 3 bands. Low beta can be thought of as a fast idle or musing. Beta is a high engagement or actively figuring something out. High beta is highly complex thought, integrating new experiences, high anxiety or excitement. Continual high-frequency processing is not a very efficient way to run the brain, as it takes a tremendous amount of energy. That's often why we feel tired after a big thought, I guess. Probably why students go to sleep in lectures. So gamma waves, they're 38 to 42 hertz, and we're going to hear a little bit more about gamma in just a minute as well. So gamma wave brainwaves are the fastest of brainwaves, high frequency like a flute, and relate to simultaneous processing of information from different brain areas. Gamma brainwaves pass information rapidly and quietly. The most subtle of the brainwave frequencies, the mind has to be quiet to access gamma. Gamma was dismissed as spare brain noise until researchers discovered it was highly active when in states of universal love, altruism, and the higher virtues. And I'm getting goosebumps as this is mentioned. Gamma is also above the frequency of neuronal firing, so how it is generated remains a mystery. It is speculated that gamma rhythms modulate perception and consciousness, and that a greater presence of gamma relates to expanded consciousness and spiritual emergence. This is where we're going to be focusing on in a short while. So what brainwaves mean to you? Our brainwave profile and our daily experience of the world are inseparable. When our brainwaves are out of balance, there will be corresponding problems in our emotional or neurophysical health. Researchers identified brainwave patterns associated with all sorts of emotional and neurological conditions. Over-arousal in certain brain areas is linked with anxiety disorders, sleep problems, nightmares, hypervigilance, impulsive behavior, anger, aggression, agitated depression, chronic nerve pain, and spasticity. Under-arousal in certain brain areas leads to some types of depression, attention deficit, chronic pain, and insomnia. A combination of under-arousal and over-arousal is seen in cases of anxiety, depression, and ADHD. Instabilities in brain rhythms correlate with tics, obsessive-compulsive disorder, aggressive behavior, rage, bruxism, panic attacks, bipolar disorder, migraines, narcolepsy, epilepsy, sleep apnea, vertigo, tinnitus, anorexia, bulimia, PMT, diabetes, hyperglycemia, and explosive behavior. Quite a big pocket of stuff to do with our brains. And we've heard of a lot of teachings or research by any number of people regarding the power of our own thought. We think ourselves ill, we think ourselves well. Dr. Bruce Lipton, many of you would have heard, and I know he's one of the contributors to News for the Soul. His studies have shown quite conclusively that it's belief systems in the brain that govern the genetics rather than the other way around. So we have ourselves to blame for what we're doing and where we are in the world right now. Now, this brings me to the Schumann resonance. And I'm going to read a little thingy out shortly about, it's just something I penned just a day or two ago, just sort of musings on where my own mind is going. But the Schumann resonance we've mentioned before, and I copy this from Dr. Joe Dispenza's blog. I was guided to some of his posts here, which I find quite fascinating as well. So in 1952, German physicist and professor W.O. Schumann hypothesized there were measurable electromagnetic waves in the atmosphere that existed in the cavity or space between the surface of the Earth and the ionosphere. That's the upper levels of the atmosphere. According to NASA, the ionosphere is an abundant layer of electrons, ionized atoms, and molecules that stretches from approximately 30 miles above the surface of the Earth to the edge of space at about 600 miles. This dynamic region grows and shrinks and further divides into subregions based upon solar conditions and is a critical link in the chain of Sun-Earth interactions. It's this celestial power station that makes radio communications possible. Many of you would be familiar with Nikola Tesla's work, and I think we've only just touched the tip of the iceberg on the wealth of information and science and possibilities and potential behind Tesla's work. So in 1954, Schumann and H.L. Koenig confirmed Schumann's hypotheses by detecting resonances at a main frequency of 7.83 Hertz. Thus, the Schumann resonance was established by measuring global electromagnetic resonances generated and excited by lightning discharges in the ionosphere. While this phenomenon is caused by lightning in the atmosphere, many are not aware of the importance of this frequency as a tuning fork for life. In other words, it acts as a background frequency influencing the biological circuitry of the mammalian brain. Wow. Okay, so measured at 7.83 Hertz, that's in 1954. 7.83 Hertz is the frequency of theta brainwaves, that state when we go into a meditative state. So this is a real light bulb moment for me when I was looking into this sort of this aspect in this field. So as far back as we know, the Earth's electromagnetic field has been protecting all living things with this natural frequency pulsation of 7.83 Hertz. You can think of this as the Earth's heartbeat. The ancient Indian rishis referred to this as Om, or the incarnation of pure sound. Whether by coincidence or not, I think not. The frequency of 7.83 also happens to be a very powerful frequency used with brainwave entrainment, as it's associated with low levels of alpha and the upper range of theta brainwave states. This frequency has also been associated with high levels of hypnotizability, in other words, ability to be hypnotized, suggestibility, meditation, and increased HGH, in other words, human growth hormone levels, in addition to increased cerebral blood flow levels while this frequency is being stimulated. It would seem then that our nervous system can be influenced by the Earth's electromagnetic field. Maybe that's why being in nature has always been so restorative and healing. disconnecting from a typical city setting by reducing our exposure to crowds, traffic, work, and routine life, and instead getting out in natural surroundings, can slow our brainwaves down from the aggressive, vigilant, anxious, and impatient states that are seen in higher ranges of beta brainwaves to more restorative alpha waves. I'm going to stop there because this touches on where our own branch of energy healing comes in. Some years ago, Catherine, my wife, evolved or developed her own healing modality called theta resonance at all levels, where you basically go into a theta brain state, and it resonates. That's where the resonance comes in with the client or person with whom you're working, and you're able to interact. In the theta state, things become more quantum in essence. So it goes down to the very basic building blocks of matter, where time doesn't exist, where space doesn't exist. In the theta state, you can go forwards in time, you can go backwards in time, you can with the person's permission, you can clear a lot of trauma, for example. It could be from birth trauma, it could be from early childhood abuse, for example, it could be past life trauma, it can be future trauma, and you can then either prevent it or certainly minimize the effects of it. So we've been using theta resonance at all levels as a healing modality for a number of years now with great effect. Within the last couple of years, however, in my own meditations, I got the word cross-frequency coupling. Now, this is something I've never come across before in my life. Maybe I've been tapping into a reservoir of human knowledge somehow, because I did as most people do and that sort of thing when they find out something that's a bit puzzling. Googled it and looked it up, and there came a whole plethora of scientific papers and all sorts of things about cross-frequency coupling. I won't get into that because it can be even more confusing than needs to be here. But the explanation given to me a couple of years ago was, if you use the theta brainwave connection and you overlay it with a higher frequency connection, at that stage it was alpha brainwaves, which is a sort of next stage up, which is more into the sort of conscious state, you can create the equivalent of a tsunami. You can get a wave building upon a wave, and the effect can be far more wide-ranging and far-reaching and deeper penetrating than just using theta brainwaves themselves. So by utilizing different brain frequencies at the same time, you can get to a much greater effect. Now, this coincided with a few interesting worldwide things happening here. Auroras, for example, around the world were becoming far more profound and reaching really, to the lower latitudes, quite unheard of. And at that stage, we realized that something big was happening around the world. And this comes from Dr. Joe Dispenza's blog again here, because on January the 31st, 2017, that's earlier this year, for the first time in recorded history, the Schumann resonance reached frequencies of 36 hertz and more. Now, this goes right into the realm of gamma brainwaves. It is considered an anomaly when in 2014 the frequency rose from its usual 7.83 to somewhere in the 15 to 25 hertz levels. So a jump from 7.83 to 36 hertz is a big deal. That 15 to 25 hertz is when that coincides with that understanding that I reached, where you could go into alpha brainwaves. That's more than a 5-fold increase in resonant frequency levels. So what does this mean to us inhabitants of Mother Earth? According to neuroscience, frequency recordings of 36 Hz and above in the human brain are more associated with a stressed nervous system than a relaxed and healthy one. Does that resonate with a few people? We are becoming a very nervous planet. It has long been suspected that human consciousness can impact the magnetic field of the Earth and create disturbances in it, and vice versa, particularly during moments of high anxiety, tension, and passion. If you aren't aware that we're living in a time of high anxiety, tension, and passion, then you probably aren't aware at all. In addition to the highly charged political, social, economic, and personal environments of our current time, many people have also been feeling like time is speeding up. Amen to that. Where has this year gone? This might explain the intense disturbance most of us are feeling at this time in history. Could the drastic rise in frequency have something to do with us? Oh yeah. I'd like to just stop there again and go across into my own thoughts, because I came to these independent of any of the other readings that I've just done. So this is done just a couple of days ago, which is just thoughts and observations about the Schumann resonance. This is copyright by me. So I wrote here, as an esoteric with a scientific bent, I have been fascinated at the apparent correlation between our own thoughts, beliefs, and brainwaves, and the effect it may have upon not just our own health, but that of the planet. Renowned geneticist Dr. Bruce Lipton has argued convincingly that it is not our genetics that govern our belief systems, but rather the opposite. What we believe is stronger than our genetics, and that we can indeed think ourselves healthy, and of course conversely think ourselves sick. My own experience as a natural therapist has proved this to me time and time again. I do believe that a client's treatment from a good therapist starts the moment of first contact. Author Terry Pratchett called this headology. If we devoted more time to really listening to our client's story before rushing headlong into a treatment protocol, perhaps our success rates will become even greater. By hearing our client's story, not just listening to it, but hearing it, we initiate a flow of information. The client trusts enough to express verbally, which establishes a connection between client and practitioner. From here, all things are possible. It's a case of speak up, you're through. As the flow of information becomes more regular, the subconscious starts to give up its secrets too. The observant practitioner will notice the clues and be able to draw out more release of the client's pent-up issues that may have virtually paralyzed his forward progress. So, how does it all work? I am a novice at the science behind it all, but I have learned from my own observations and field practice through reading countless articles and through meditation. I found out about the Schumann resonance, that electromagnetic background hum in the atmosphere and all around us that is apparently generated largely by lightning. I found out about brainwaves, particularly theta waves, that allow us to go into a deep meditation or dream state. I learned about the Om, that mystic mantra in Hindu and Eastern religions, which is the essence of life itself. I learned about frequencies, and that at the most basic quantum level, matter is our vibration, itself a frequency. Then I had a light bulb moment and put them all together. Why, I asked myself, are the Schumann resonance, theta brainwaves during meditation, and the Om in the same frequency band? I theorized the answer, which seems to be backed up by scientific research, but now, of course, gives birth to new questions. Yes, we are all individual cogs in the enormous mechanism of the universe. But as insignificant as we may seem as individuals, we are integral to the operation of that mechanism. Yet we are all living, sentient beings, so perhaps less physics and more biology would be appropriate. We are indeed part of an organism. I visualize each of us as the equivalent of nerve endings of creation. We sense and we feel and provide feedback to the brain via the central nervous system on good and potentially harmful conditions. The brain correlates all the information and sends back any corrective instructions to the muscles and the nerves to promote the organism's well-being. If we as nerve endings are impeded in any way, degraded signals will be sent to the brain. If we are all operating at full efficiency, so the entire organism must operate at full efficiency. Subtract the good effect of one nerve ending and the entire organism is affected. The Schumann resonance until a few years ago was vibrating at the frequency of theta brainwaves, around 6 to 10 Hertz. That was the dawning of the age of Aquarius, people meditating over their navels and inhaling more than perhaps just fresh air. Eastern mysticism became popular in the West. What this started was a groundswell of enlightenment into the interconnectedness of all living things. As this enlightenment has taken off, our own vibrational frequencies must follow. As we vibrate at a higher frequency, what messages are we then passing to the cosmic brain? And also, if we vibrate at a more depressed frequency, how does that cosmic brain react to correct things? With the Earth reaching enlightenment, the Schumann resonance has increased in frequency and we now observe peaks around 40 Hertz. This is in the realm of gamma brainwaves, those found when we are awake, conscious and aware. So now, instead of connecting to creation in a state of deep meditation, we are pretty much constantly connected in our state of consciousness. Are we, therefore, the instigators of the lightning that causes the Schumann resonance? Are we sending signals to the cosmic brain that the conditions in which we live are not conducive to comfortable long-term existence, and that something needs to change? Perhaps the weather extremes our planet is experiencing is a reaction from the cosmic brain, from Gaia, to correct the toxic global warming, rampant commercialism at the expense of our environment, and crass politicism. I would therefore ask each and every one of us to maintain or raise even higher our individual vibrational frequency. That way we can help our immediate family and colleagues to do the same. It stands to reason that soon every individual will be able to unite for the good, not just of ourselves, but for the good of the organism that is that little cosmic blue ball on which we stand. Maybe we can even be a positive example to those other little balls in the universe who wait to see what we are doing before they too will join the party. This is interesting because scientists have discovered Schumann resonances on other planets and other celestial orbs. Perhaps we are being inspected at the moment to see what we're going to be doing. Now, I'd like to, at this stage, ask each and every one of you, listening and present, maybe even in the subconscious state, to join together here right now, because I'd like to play one of Catherine's songs called The Pulse of the Universal Orchestra. This is a beautiful, beautiful, I say tune, it's not, it's an anthem almost for all of us to be able to connect together. It's a great time to meditate, and I'd like each and every one of us to connect into that universal subconsciousness, perhaps, and do what we can from our own mastership, from our own reason for being here, because I think this is a critical time in our planet's existence. We look at all the fires around Canada, around California, America. We look at the instability around the political situation with Korea, for example. We look at global warming. We look at all the weather extremes, the floods. We look at the droughts. We look at tornadoes, hurricanes. All of these extremes, I think this is really our own subconscious saying enough. And at our higher essence of being here, we really need to connect together and say jointly to ourselves and to the world and to the world leaders, enough is enough. Pay attention to what we're doing to the planet, because really this is crunch time. I think this is why we need to just get together and say enough of this getting together to look at the world in a different way now, because we need to say and understand that this is all we've got. We don't have anything more. There is no more reserve left. So I'd like to just play the Pulse of the Universal Orchestra by Catherine Bright here. It is a lovely meditative melody. Connect to what it is that you're doing here on the planet, and ask from that higher self what you can do to make this world not just a better place, but a world in which you can continue to live. I think it's come to crunch time, everybody. So this is the Pulse of the Universal Orchestra. Please join together and ask for what you need to do to make this world a safe and pleasant place for not just ourselves, but our children. That's the pulse of the universal orchestra. And as we all gently and slowly come back into the real world, I guess, or the world in which we exist bodily, I'd like everybody to make a commitment to revisit the space where we've been regularly, and to top up the reserves of the greater good with your own reason for being here. I do think we all have a responsibility to look after this planet. After here, there is nothing on which we can live. I don't see us getting to Mars or anywhere else. I do believe we can no longer escape from where we're at. It's either this or nothing at all. And I think this is where we're at right now. It's important for everybody to just say no more. I think we all need to petition our politicians, vote the right people into power, for example. Those decision makers need to have the understanding that they are representing the world, not just one or two people or their own selves. Ego needs to go out the window. I'm going back to Dr. Joe Dispenza's article here, because the frequency of the Schumann resonance is increasing beyond where we've ever experienced before. He goes, as we know from science, the higher the frequency, the more highly diversified the information those frequencies carry. Since we are organic creatures made of matter and susceptible to electromagnetic fields, and perhaps our lives are inseparable from the Earth, then if the Earth's frequency is rising, shouldn't that also raise our frequency? I tend to come at this from a different direction here. If our frequency is rising, then why shouldn't the Earth's frequency rise as well? So evolution has not always been an easy process, but the energy behind it, the energy of the unified field, is always moving towards greater degrees of organization and wholeness, both within and without. If the Earth's magnetic field is raising, then shouldn't that allow our brain to be able to pick up greater frequencies that are even higher than the stressed state of high beta brainwaves? If so, is there a range of brain frequencies above the scale of high beta brainwaves that, instead of being associated with a brain that is over-aroused and imbalanced, is associated with a brain that is more aware, conscious, and creative? Increases in frequency create increases in consciousness, and when our consciousness increases, we have greater awareness, and that's what gamma brainwaves are. Gamma brainwaves, which can be more than twice as high beta brainwaves, represent an aroused state in the brain. However, they are not connected to the survival states, an emergency mode, but correlated with a kind of super consciousness and awareness, as well as higher amounts of love and compassion. As the Earth goes through her metamorphosis, perhaps we too have to transition through this time of emotional intensity related to beta brainwaves before we can enter a new consciousness of gamma brainwave states. And wouldn't that upgrade our own nervous system and expand our perception and awareness of reality? Perhaps we are on the verge of a great evolutionary jump. Another way to say it is we are going through an initiation. After all, isn't an initiation a rite of passage from one phase to another? Perhaps the Earth is assisting us in lifting the veil, initiating us to a quickening in energy and enabling us to see our true nature. Maybe when we see, remember, and awaken to who we truly are, human beings can finally move as a collective consciousness from a state of surviving to a state of thriving. So there we have it. We have unprecedented auroras around the globe right now. We've had the aurora australis, the southern lights, coming up particularly powerful and colorful. What are we being told here? Are we influencing this ourselves? Are we being influenced by the auroras or by the sun's solar activity? I don't have that answer. I do believe there's an interaction between the Earth, the sun, the planetary systems, and our own inner cosmos that are our own bodies. I do believe we are an integral part of why we are here, where we are going. But more important than that is our responsibility in what we do from here on. It's our choices. I do believe that with our own brain power, we can become pretty much a supercomputer. I do see a group meditation as being much more effective than single meditations. We've had a number of experiences over the last few years. We've had a group guided meditation, for example, over this particular program, where the effect has been quite astounding. And I do believe that we are, in a way, like a lot of little computers connecting to a central nervous system, for want of a better expression. We become this giant supercomputer, and that is what I believe the Earth is in essence, because we are linking not just with ourselves as human beings, but I do believe we are also connecting with the other sentient creatures around the planet. And that's an important one here, is the damage we are doing to the planet is damaging not just ourselves, but the other components of this integrated supercomputer that is the Earth. Why are we destroying the very thing in which we choose to exist? I can't answer that one. This is stupidity. Perhaps it's just where we become more engrossed with our own egos, our own passions, than actually using those for good. I do think that's an important aspect to understand, that there is nothing after this planet. We don't have the potential for traveling to Mars and existing in the same way that we do here, for example. This is all we've got. I do believe there is exploration, for example. I don't believe there will be a spaceship coming down and rescuing all the good people on the Earth and leaving all the bad people behind. We're it. I do believe that we are our own spaceship, and we need to rescue ourselves. We need to rescue those beings upon whom we depend for our continued existence as well. Perhaps we should have a look at this one in greater depth down the line, but I'd like to go into another meditation or another thoughtful process, perhaps. I'm going to just connect up and have a look at perhaps what we need to play here for you, because it's an important one for everybody to resonate at the same frequency right now. Okay, of course it is. It's Love's Heart. From the same CD, Instrumental Meditations from Catherine Bright. This is Love's Heart. That's Love's Heart. Beautiful music, but comes from the heart, and it comes from a passion. And I think that's where we all need to go with this one, is engage with our own passion, with our own love within our own hearts, no matter how hurt or damaged they may be, because we've all been through some degree of trauma and heartbreak and upset in our lives. And I think we need to arrive at that point now, at the other side of that, where we can universally connect up through our hearts and, I guess, inject a whole big dose of endorphins into the planet. That lovely feel-good hormone that makes the place a better world to live in. I have found, when we first started Healings, Catherine and I, all those years ago, starting at the theta brainwave level, going through this cross-frequency coupling potential of incorporating other alpha brainwaves into our healing processes, I'm finding now, as the planet has evolved and as the frequencies of people have evolved, our own healings are that much more complex, but they do tend to encompass a whole spectrum of frequencies. Not just a particular one frequency or another, but the whole gamut of brainwaves. And I think this is tending towards healing not just the client who comes to us for help, but it also incorporates their own space, their family, their friends, their pets, their animals, the land on which they walk, and spreads around the world, I think, as a result of that one, because I do see other pockets of healers around the world doing similar kinds of work. My heart and my mind goes out to that wonderful soul, Echo Alec. So a big shout out to you, Echo, across in Vancouver in Canada. We had the real privilege of meeting her, and here's another one on the other side of the world from us who has the planet in her heart, and bless her for that one, because more people like her will tend to bring us all together rather than divide us. And that's where we need to be here. We need to be a planet united, not a planet divided. I do think it's only as a planet united can we become a planet enlightened completely. So we can go one way or the other with this one. As the Schumann resonance increases in frequency above and beyond our own brainwaves, who knows, it may even be vibrating at frequencies we can't even measure right now. Maybe we are connecting with other planets, and I never say never. So I would expect, if we haven't already, to have some kind of contact with other living creatures around the cosmos. I do believe they are already within us and around us. They're just not making themselves seen, because who on earth wants to be caught up in a big fight? So I think let's just put down our own, stop bludgeoning one another here and work together towards making the world a better place, a brighter place, a more enlightened place, because that's where the world is headed one way or the other. I don't believe there is any potential for us to continue sitting on the fence. Let's just take down the fence altogether and live as one. I don't think it's necessary for world wars or anything like that. It is just a war between egos. It's up to us as the electorate to vote the right people into power. And those people who are just being stupid and saber-rattling, I don't think they need to be where they are right now, quite honestly. I think more women in power would be a great thing, because they tend to communicate a lot more efficiently and effectively. Men tend to be being sort of knuckle-dragging, hairy armpitted beings who go ugh an awful lot and shake, rattle and roll. If we talked to one another more, but talked from the heart, talked about emotions, talked about feelings, wouldn't the world be a much better place? Because we'd have much more understanding and compassion for one another. We'd have much greater awareness of what it is that drives other people, And there wouldn't be the space for people to closet themselves away and build up the anxiety and angst. I do believe technology is both a blessing and a curse for us. I do believe mobile phones, for example, have multiplied logarithmically the potential for communication around the planet. But it also has, and in fact it already is, enclosing us in our own inner world, as it were. It's tending to, in many ways, cocoon us and hold us from communicating effectively with those around us. The facility is there to communicate, but do we use it to the full advantage, or do we just want to play computer games and Facebook of the person sitting right next to us? Maybe we need to just be a little bit more attentive and understanding of what we are doing to ourselves. As a Bowen practitioner, a Bowen practitioner is Bowen is a, I think we talked about this once before in a couple of other programs, but it's an Australian therapy which helps with unlocking a lot of nuts and bolts and knots in people's bodies and muscular systems. It helps release trauma. Look it up. It'll be a great help for a lot of people here. But I find as a Bowen therapist, so many younger people coming to us with pains in the necks, and they're not the teachers or family. They are simply from holding their heads down, constantly tweeting away or twittering away or doing these other things on the phone or the computer or the iPad or whatever. The technology has changed, but have people changed? I don't see any difference between that and actually reading the newspaper at the bus stop from 30, 40, 50 years ago. We're doing the same thing, but with different technology. So maybe let's just put everything that we've got, holding our attention, and look at the bigger picture. Get outside, look outside, look outdoors, experience outdoors. We talked about getting outdoors in the previous readings, connecting us with the Schumann resonance. Maybe then we can truly become who we need to be, and that is connected with nature, connected with each other. Wave to your neighbor over the fence. Wave to the person over the road. They're going to wonder why you're so happy, but they're going to be feeling a little bit upbeat themselves. Smile at the teller at the supermarket. Say hi to a policeman. They're going through a lot of tough times as well. The traffic cop giving you a ticket. Just say, smile and say, bless you. You're doing a good job. It's going to make everybody's day a little bit brighter. It's going to raise the frequency of their own existence, and it's going to be passed on to the next person down the line. And isn't that what we want, is a better world? That starts with us. It starts with us taking responsibility for who we are, for utilizing why we are here, utilizing what we are given to pass on. I think it's acts of random kindness, that arc factor, where we need to embrace this much more and give to those around us without expecting anything in return. Certainly accept when we are given, but we need to give without expectation. That's where the ego comes in. We need to dismiss the ego a little bit here and engage with just what we can do for each other. We are a community, and we need to behave like one. So thank you for listening. I do hope I haven't upset anybody or given people a lot of food for thought here. I'm a lot more upbeat than a lot of other people are going around the planet, all gloom and doom. I believe we have the means of our own, not just survival, but blossoming here, not just for ourselves, but for everybody around us. And I think once we've perhaps embraced that and taken on the full accountability for why we're here, oh gosh, this world is just going to be absolutely wonderful and beautiful. Not that it isn't already, but can you imagine a full multi-dimensional, I mean, we've had black and white TV, for example. Now we've gone into color TV. We've gone on to high definition TV. Imagine what is in the future for us, where back in 1954 with the Schumann resonance at theta brainwaves. Imagine where we can embrace that full frequency into our own day-to-day existences. It's going to be the most incredibly beautiful experience. It doesn't have to be cataclysmic, it can be beautiful. So let's all emerge from our little cocoons as where we've been caterpillars for so long, and let's just spread our wings into little rainbow butterflies and do what we need to do. Make this world a better place. Thank you for listening. We're going to be back again next week. Catherine and I will be together again. I think it's come up to near the top of the hour, so just a bit of shameless self-promotion. My own website, kimbrightaustralia.com, that little passage I read earlier on, I will put that on as a blog onto my website there as well. The recordings that you will hear through News for the Soul can all be downloaded through the News for the Soul website, or there will be links to that from our own websites, kimbrightaustralia.com and catherinebrightaustralia.com. Catherine has a number of products available which would help everybody in their own evolution. Hypnosis recordings, meditation recordings. You've heard just a couple of tracks from one of her CDs here. She has some beautiful, beautiful books available to help enlighten and educate. She has online courses, for example. So do yourself a favor. Have a look at catherinebrightaustralia.com. There are links to my website from hers and her website from mine. So we do try and keep in touch with one another here and refer everybody. There are a number of other products available. Protecting oneself from electromagnetic frequencies, for example, EMFs. There's a link on Catherine's site and mine as well there. A lot of good stuff. So as I say, do yourself a favor. Have a look at the websites. You can make online bookings as well for healings or readings from both Catherine and myself. I still have some vacancies or possibilities coming up in the next couple of weeks. So kimbrightaustralia.com. My books are still open. Catherine is very tied up with a lot of other projects that she's working on at the moment, but I can certainly fit you in through a Skype or telephone conversation anywhere around the world at any time, within reason, of course. So get in touch with us, catherinebrightaustralia.com, kimbrightaustralia.com, or through the News for the Soul linkage. So been lovely talking to you. Food for thought today. So let's all join together, be the rainbow beings that we really are inside, release those nice feel-good endorphins from ourselves around the planet, and let's heal the world. Michael Jackson, everybody can do this one. I think it's time now, everybody. Let our hearts rule our heads here, and let's get it going together. Thanks so much for listening. Love and blessings to you all. Keep on with the good work. Remember to top up the reservoir of your own healing that you sent out to the planet. Please continue to do that over the next week, over the next 7 days. 7 days doesn't make 1 week. It makes one very much more healthy. So blessings, guidance, and lots of love. Bye for now.